Mom Who Knows Nada. My name is Brianna, and this is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. We have a guest here with us today in Valencia, Alex Cequea. He's going to tell us all about his journey from multiple continents, to be fair, and some of the initiatives he's working on to support immigrants and expats as they relocate. So, bienvenidos, Alex. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time.
My pleasure. Happy to always talk and happy to always tell stories. So looking forward to it.
Yay! So you've had a few international moves. So I kind of want to talk about your experience as a whole because I think that it helps influence what the work you're doing now and how you're supporting Americans as they jump ship. So let's talk a little bit about your roots, where you're from, and how you got to Spain.
Sure. How far back do you want me to go?
Well, okay, so let's say that you're Venezuelan American. So talk a little bit about your childhood. You split it between Venezuela and the U.S. and what
Sure.
that was like a little bit, and then what brought you to Spain.
Okay, I'll tell you my 30-second life story very quickly. So my parents grew up very poor in Venezuela. And the one thing that they had going for them is that they were excellent students. And so when they were teenagers, they got a scholarship to study English abroad. And so they ended in a tiny little town in Tennessee called Martin, Tennessee. UT Martin, the University of Tennessee at Martin is there. And they were studying English. And while they were college students there, they had a surprise baby. And the surprise baby was this guy. I came to ruin the college party. So they were very young, and I was born in the U.S., but because they were so young, they separated when I was 3 years old. And so at the age of 3, I moved back to Venezuela with my mom. And so then I spent all my childhood in Venezuela until the age of 12 when I moved back to the U.S. to live with my dad, who at that point was living in Texas. So when people ask me where I'm from, I have to be like, okay,
Well,
sorry. Yeah, because in Venezuela, I was the gringo, right? I was the foreign American because I was born somewhere else. And then in Texas, at the age of 12 and through my adolescence, I was the Venezuelan because my childhood was in Venezuela. So I think that was an early, in addition to that, I also moved a lot as a kid. So I think all those experiences were early, like developmental things in my life that made me think, okay, it really doesn't matter where you are. You kind of carry,
mhm.
The environment doesn't so much, wait, how do I say this? So wherever I am, that's where I am kind of thing. And I tell you a very visceral experience that I had with this. When I was in 5th grade, I moved from one side of Venezuela to the other. And in one school, I was very popular and had lots of friends and I was very funny and I was like, class clown kind of thing. Moved to the other side. Now nobody gets my jokes, not popular at all. It's like, and I just remember that feeling of like, wow, I'm the same. So it's not me that's the problem.
Wow.
I'm really happy that it landed for me that way because it easily could have landed very differently as like I need to be something else or I need to change or like I need to adapt or it just made me realize like, oh, it really, a lot of the experience just depends on the environment and who I'm surrounded by.
Yeah, can we delve into this a little bit?
Yeah.
That multicultural background and having those different perceptions of you depending on where you were is really interesting. I've had friends say this. It's like your Black friends say, like, you're too Black for the white friends and you're too white for the Black friends, like growing up in Baltimore. How does that resonate with you?
So for me, is the Latin American thing. People say like, oh,
Right.
you're Venezuelan. So then all the list of assumptions of what that means, right?
Yeah.
But then I have to be like, well, actually, I consider myself more American than Venezuelan because I spent my adolescence in the US. And once I was a teenager, I dove so far into the identity of being an American because adolescence, it's a hard time and we're all figuring out who we are. And for me, that journey was like, oh, okay, I want to be like super American. Like I want to dive fully in. So I was like, music and culture and things. I was like, I'm Americanized fully, and that sort of stuck with me. But I also had my whole childhood in Venezuela, and
Yeah.
so it's a bit of a mix, you know. The from the American side, it's also a whole other thing where, oh, you're from the US, then, oh, you must know this and you must know that. But it's like, yeah, I missed a whole chunk of culture that I didn't grow up with because I grew up watching cartoons in Venezuela. And funnily enough, you know what happened? This is a common experience to a lot of people in Latin America. The shows that Latin American kids watched were usually American shows, but from like 10 or 20 years earlier, that have been then
Interesting.
sold and syndicated in Latin America and translated. And so I was watching growing up shows like Bewitched and like Who's the Boss, and like shows that
Good
were
stuff.
already past their prime in the US, but they had been translated and then sent to Latin America. And so I have all this
I mean, those are good shows, I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, yeah. I Dream of Jeannie. Like I used to watch that all the time. I remember when it was like partly in
Great.
black and white and then partly in color. And this I'm talking about the 90s. And that's what we were watching in Venezuela.
See?
So it's funny. I have more in common culturally sometimes, childhood wise, with like boomers growing up in it. You know, like I could be like, oh yeah, I know, I grew up with that show too.
Yeah.
Like,
Let me tell you the story about that. How do you feel about this American identity now?
well, now it's it's a hard thing to kind of tackle or lean
Yeah.
into. A few years ago, I was in Vietnam, and I remember we went to the Vietnam War
Mm.
museum, and it was people would ask, where are you from? That experience was very interesting because every time I would say like, oh, I'm from the US, like you could tell people were like, oh.
You should
And
stay in Venezuela.
yeah, and then I started saying more like, no, no, Venezuela, Venezuela. I grew up in Venezuela. I go like leaning more into my Venezuelan side. Yeah, and right now it's a hard time to identify as an American. Throw it.
What were the pros about growing up in first of all, two different places, so very international, multicultural. So what advantages do you see about that lifestyle?
So one thing that I have learned in my life that is a huge advantage, very simply, is the ability to adapt to change. That's it.
Mm, fair.
Because it's so crazy. Like over 50% of Americans don't have a passport. They've never
That
traveled abroad. And even the ones that have, you know how this is, right? Like,
Mhm. I know.
a lot of Americans will go to like, oh, they take a cruise or they go to like an all-inclusive resort in
Mhm.
Cancun, right? And they spend a week there, and then they go to the pool, and they go to the
Yeah.
buffet, and then they go to the guided tour, and then they come back and say, "Wow, I love the culture in Mexico," right? Like,
In Cancun.
yeah, in Cancun. So, like, no, a lot of very sheltered experiences, a lot of very limited experiences, and that makes people afraid when there are societal things that are changing very fast around them, and people don't know how to adapt to change or how to
Mhm.
adapt to different circumstances because they
Yeah.
know what they know and they know they like their bubbles, their safe bubbles. And so that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I realized early on, probably in my teenage years and then in my early 20s. I was like, oh, people are not used to this. It's very scary for people to want to move. I had a friend in Houston who, for about 10 years, every time I visited him, he told me about how much he wanted to leave Houston. But he
Mm.
was debating, he didn't know, it was hard for him. But where he wanted to move to was Austin, Texas, which is 2 hours away. For 10 years, we had this conversation. Every time we visit, he'd be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should move. I don't know. I'm like, dude, I just took a trip around the world. Like, I just, I just lived in
Giant
all these
step.
other countries and came back. Like, but that's the biggest thing. It's sort of that adaptability to change and to be able to not be afraid of new environments and new circumstances. And that's the biggest thing. And then there's all sorts of other much more subtle things, which is the ability to empathize with
Mm.
different cultures and different ways of thinking,
Mhm.
the ability to understand another culture more easily and faster than say like, oh, that's weird. Be like, oh, okay, now I understand your context. I understand why that makes sense and why you would do that. Like that makes perfect sense. All of those things really help with just being able to feel like you're a citizen of the world and be able to connect with lots of people.
Great to
Yeah.
me. Makes sense in my brain. What about disadvantages, like in having that sliding cultural identity? Again, being like too Latino for one and not Latino enough for the other. What is that, navigating that?
That's a bit of a challenge in that there's something nice about having that shared cultural identity because it's a
Hmm.
shorthand a lot of
Yeah,
times for people that you connect with. And sometimes I felt jealous in my life of people that say, like, oh, I've known this person since kindergarten, or
yeah,
I grown up with this person, and it's like, I mean, I have a few friends that have been friends for a long time, but like, we don't live in the same city or we haven't grown up together. Or it's
yeah,
been kind of chunks or we've lost contact for a while. So that part's the tribal aspect of that definitely hits a bit where I feel like,
sure.
oh, I'm kind of untethered, which is great on one end because I do love the freedom of being able to go and not feeling like I have any attachments. But also it's nice to have roots and it's nice to feel grounded in a place or in a community or in a tribe.
Yeah. Nah, because I never, I didn't leave. I traveled a lot, but I didn't move out of the US until I moved to Spain. And it really got me thinking about like where I came from. Because my family's Italian and Irish. I'm very Irish. Actually, my dad traced our Irish roots and we were deported to America because of thievery. Oh, got that going for
Wow.
me? Yeah,
Outlaws.
so I know, so cool, right? I was like, "Yes, I'm on the right side." First, I mean, on my first thought, I was like, "Fuck, I'm on the right side of history. This is great." And then the other side was the Italian side. My great-grandparents were both first-generation Italian Americans. I kinda just went down this rabbit hole about, like, what life was like for them, you know? And you just kinda have, like, a different perception when you realize what my family had to go through to get here, at least in them. Like, now I can, and then doing it the reverse, you're like, "Oh, this is what, like, my great-great-grandmother must have been experiencing when she was a
Right.
teenager, trying to navigate a world." So, I think what you're saying is really just, like, fascinating, something that needs to be discussed is, like, it's hard to straddle that multicultural line for people, especially when people aren't open to receiving it. And I think sometimes the narrative in the US can be very, you know, anti and not as inclusive, at least in the media, as opposed to like, and I think that's really hard for kids to experience. And I know a few years ago they had like the DACA thing where like all the kids were, they were brought over or even born in the US like to illegal immigrants and like they're gonna be deported. And it's like you're not embracing what makes, in my opinion, America so beautiful. So I just wanted to kind of see
Yeah.
like what that was like to live because I mean, again, I moved a lot of places, but never out of the country until I was an adult and had a different perception of everything.
Yeah. No, but you know what helped too, at least for me, when I was 12 and I moved to Texas, Texas, it's a lot of Hispanics in
Yeah.
Texas. And so I didn't feel totally isolated because I was in ESL classes, English as a second language
Yeah.
classes with a lot of other kids who were either also Hispanic or they were Asian, like from other countries, but they're still struggling with they're in the exact same boat as I am. So then it felt a bit like I'm jumping into a shared community, shared tribe. So that helps to ease the transition quite a bit.
Yeah. Did you practice, because you said both your parents were really good students and they got this, scholarship to go abroad to learn and be educated in a different country. Did they pass that English knowledge on to you from a young age?
Okay, so this is a crazy thing. This is a crazy thing that
Okay.
happened to me. So technically, my first language was English, both English
Yeah.
and Spanish at home. But I was speaking English when I was 3 years old. But for whatever reason, when I moved to Venezuela, I just forgot all my English completely. And my memory as a child growing up in Venezuela is that I did not speak English at all. And
Okay.
apparently, I heard from my mom that the story is that when I arrived in Venezuela, I only spoke English and I would speak English with my mom. Um, and everybody found that very cute. And so all my families and cousins and aunts and uncles would try to get me to speak English because it was this cute child speaking in English. And so I would I would speak. And apparently one day I was 3, 4 years old, pulled my mom aside, and I told her, like, very quietly, I said, "Mom, I am not a clown."
Oh,
And then I stopped speaking English. I just stopped speaking English. Like, it's like I like force myself to forget English. And so my memory is I remember cousins and aunts and uncle asking me to speak in English and me being confused and me being like, what? I don't speak English. So it's so crazy. Like some mini trauma that happened there, you know? So, okay.
I want to
So
go
now
down a rabbit
fast
hole with
forward.
this one.
It's so fascinating. So now fast forward to age 12. I moved to Texas. I'm in school. And so they give me a test to see where they're going to place me in terms of my English speaking ability. I take the
Okay.
test. I score a 0, 0. I knew my name. I knew hello.
Good.
I knew
Good.
yes. I knew no, because that's the same.
Yeah.
And my dad that morning had taught me, where is the restroom? Those are the only things I knew in English. And so
So great.
0. I scored a 0, nothing. And so I got placed in the lowest level, brand new beginner. Okay. I go through that school year and it was as if I was just remembering all the
Wow.
English. Like, I literally felt it like that. Like, it literally felt like the neural pathways were there, had
Yeah.
been dormant since the age of 3, and they were
Yeah.
just reactivating. And I was just like picking it. I was
So
just
cool.
like, every day. I just remember being like, I learned 10, 20 new words, and everything would just flow so easily.
Rude.
And so then at the end of the
It's
school
rude.
year, I take the same test with the
Yeah.
same lady that did the test at the beginning of the year, and I
Yeah.
scored 100. I placed
No.
completely out. I was fluent. I placed completely out of
Oh,
ESL.
for where you needed to be. That's incredible.
And the lady was like, how did you do what? Like, how did you do this?" I'm
I
like, "I don't
mean,
know. I have no idea." And I
well,
think
I
it's just
think
that. I just had it in there, you know?
you did. And then I think also, too, there have been so many studies done on like pregnancy and women and blah, blah, blah. And it's like your baby's absorbing when you're pregnant. So it's like if your parents were speaking English, practicing English, or just like, the cellular development of for you as a fetus was like also absorbing all of that too. Like not to get nerdy about it, but to get a little nerdy about it. Like, so all of that is happening simultaneously. Like it was there. And your parents obviously are prone to have an affinity for languages. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
there. The DNA was there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's a lot of
Amazing.
rabbit holes I could take with this conversation, but we are not here. There's so many questions like, boop, 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 but I'm going to keep myself on track. You've also lived all over the world.
Yes.
Is there any other place besides Spain that you has had like a special place in your heart?
So I'll tell you a little bit. So I started working remotely about 15 years ago. I used to own a publishing company and I was the editor of a magazine, of a tech magazine. It was a print magazine, but because I was the editor, I was managing all our team of writers who were all scattered all over the country and the world. And so I didn't need to be in an office, so I could do it remotely, and so I was working remotely way before anybody was doing it a lot. But I also had read the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim
Yeah.
Ferriss, and so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was an early influence in being like, I want to be location independent. I want to live this kind of life where I'm traveling around. And so as soon as I had that set up, I was like, cool, I can work remotely. So and I was with a partner at the time. We were living in Colorado. And so from Colorado, I would work remotely, but then, travel. And and stuff. But I didn't fully start traveling until maybe about 10 years ago or so and become like a real digital nomad. And then in that time, I jumped around a lot. And so in total, I have lived and worked in about 35, 36 countries, something like that. Obviously, a lot of those are like, I was in a home base of a country. And then from that country, I would take short trips and do like tourism or spend a week here, or like, a few days
Mm-hmm.
here, things like that.
Okay.
And so Asia, I love quite a bit. Thailand was fantastic. Vietnam, I loved a lot. I actually went back to Vietnam this January for a few
Mm.
weeks. Really nice, very lively and fun, and just a great country to be in. I also lived in Mexico for a couple of years, and that was pretty fantastic as well. I lived in Playa del Carmen. Yeah, you know it? You
Yeah.
been there?
Oh, darn. I haven't been there, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. Super nice. I lived like a 10-minute walk from the beach. I had a place with a
Awful.
rooftop pool. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I still here in Valencia, I also live like 8 minutes walk
Yeah.
from the beach. So like this is my favorite setup always. So those places are really nice. Obviously, they all have their pros and cons. In Mexico, for example, it was very clear that I was in a tourist bubble, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what created the safety to be able to just work there and live there. It's because in Mexico, everyone protects tourists. Everyone
Yes.
from the police, the government, the cartel, everyone protects tourists because they are a source of revenue for the country. And so
Mm-hmm.
I knew that as soon as I stayed in that bubble, I was fine, but then it also feels limiting because if
Yes.
you want to go explore, if you want to go kind of mingle or talk to more local people or hang out in different circles, it's a little bit harder to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else? There's places that I've visited that I've wanted to go back to and spend more time in, like Japan, for example.
Mm.
Japan feels like another
Yes.
planet,
World?
like
Yeah,
it
I can
just
imagine that.
yeah, it's wonderful and amazing and so totally different. It's just a great just a cultural experience, to be able to dive in there.
I always went to like Tulum when I lived on the East Coast
Yeah.
or Cabo San Lucas when I lived in California. And so it's just to point out, it's not just Mexico. I'm not picking on Mexico, but because you said that, I remember the last time I went to Tulum was right before we moved here. And I was desperate to go to Chichen Itza. I've always wanted to go to Chichen Itza. But literally, like 2 months before we were there was an encounter with the cartel and tourists. And it was one of
No.
the where I think they were like trying to make a point, like, we don't infiltrate this area. And a couple of tourists like died. So I was not going to venture by myself to Chichen Itza.
Yeah,
I still
damn.
haven't been. But it's like what you to your point is like there's a little bubble there, and I would, and it's not just in Mexico again, but it's interesting how there's certain behaviors that you absorb just based on where you are. And I think
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
totally.
So what brought you to Spain for a more a longer tenure, if you will?
Yeah. So, I was working remotely, jumping around from different countries. I was living in Mexico, and then me and my previous partner, who was also working remotely, we were like, okay, let's go explore some more. Let's go keep traveling. And so our plan, we had a whole route. Like we went to Morocco, went to
Mm,
England. We were gonna stop in Spain, and then we were gonna go and explore Central and South America. So we were gonna go to Colombia, and then I don't remember what we had planned after that. We go to England, we go to Morocco, and then we arrive in Spain, and we were supposed to be in Spain in Barcelona for 3 months. Our plan was, okay, let's pick a really good hub in Spain with a good airport, and then every weekend we can just take like the cheapest Ryanair flight to some
yeah,
other part of Europe, and then
yeah.
spend the weekend every weekend like someplace else, you know? And so the very first weekend we planned Milan. And so we arrive, and we're there for like a week. We go to Milan, and as we're boarding the flight to Milan, my mom tells me, this is 2020. This is this is February of 2020. My mom tells me like, "Hey, be careful because I just heard that this virus thing is in it might be in Italy now. And I was like, oh, I think it's fine. That's whatever. Like, we're just going for 2 days. Like, it's fine, you know? And so, board on the plane, we arrive, we land in Milan at the airport, and we start coming out. And outside, greeting everyone that's coming out of the plane is a team of like 10 people in full on hazmat suits
What?
with taking everybody's temperatures. We're like, what the fuck?
What is
What
happening?
is happening?
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird, but okay. And so we go from the airport to our Airbnb. We check in. Our Airbnb host is like, "Hey, if you guys want to stay longer, you can because nobody's coming now because of this virus." We're like, "Okay." We're like, "What are we doing here?" So we're like, all right, whatever. Let's go have breakfast. So we go have breakfast, and as we're eating breakfast in this little cafe, there's a TV on, and I just notice at some point everyone stops eating and they just turn to the TV and they're like announcing something, like an important announcement. Like, what? It's Italian, so I'm like half I know that it has to do with COVID, right? But I don't know what's going on. And so I like Google in the moment. At that exact moment, just announced all museums, all events, all public activities
My
are closed.
God.
And so I turned to my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, we gotta get the fuck out of here, like right now. And so we go back to Airbnb, we pick up our stuff, we go to the train station, and I'm like, well, I'm still hopeful, right? I'm like, well, it's 2 days. Like, what if we go to a different part of Italy? Like, we can go, like, we'll go to Rome or like just Turin or something. Like, just take the train to like a different part of Italy, and then we'll be back. Like, it's 2 days. And I look at the train listings, and it's
Ensalada.
cancel, 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 cancel. All the trains are canceled. But then when you
Oh my
look at the
God.
other side of the trains, it's the international trains, and those were not canceled yet.
Oh, interesting.
And so the very next train out of Milan was to Zurich. I was like, let's go. Like, we're fucking going to Switzerland. Let's go. So I go to them, 2 tickets for Zurich, please, as soon as possible. And he was leaving in like an hour. And the whole hour, I'm thinking like, please don't cancel, please. Because we didn't have our laptops. We didn't have anything. We were just going for a couple days. And so I was like, if we get stuck here, man. And so anyways, the hour comes, we manage to get on the train takes off. I'm like, okay, this is good. It's a good sign. We're going. I'm looking at the train on Google Maps, just waiting for us to cross the border with Switzerland. So I'm like, okay, as soon as we're out, like, then we can, head back to Spain. And as we're getting closer and closer to the border with Switzerland, we get right up into the border and the train stops.
Jesus.
And the train conductor comes on and is like, hey, ladies and gentlemen, because of this virus, we're having some health officials come through the train and I guess look for the virus. Like, what are they, like, like, what are they going to do,
What?
And so these people
My
came
God.
on the train and they're just kind of looking like, I don't know, let's see if we see the virus. And so they're just looking around like, you look like you're kind of sneezing, like, come with us. So there was a guy that had a cold. He was like sneezing. It was like, all right, now come with us. And they took him out of the train and like somebody else
My
coughing,
God.
like, come on. And then they're like, all right, cool, you can go. And then we kept going. We went into Zurich. That night we had
My
cheese and
God.
chocolate.
You
And
lived it
then,
up.
yeah. And then the next day took a flight back to Barcelona. Later on that week, full shutdown, full
Wow.
COVID lockdown in Italy, and then a few days later, full COVID lockdown in Spain.
Spain.
And so our original 3 month trip turned into an indefinite time. But I was like, well, there's worse places to be stuck. We got
Could have been
pretty
in
lucky.
England.
Yeah. Or
Sorry.
Morocco. Like we were in Morocco right before, and I had some friends who stayed there through COVID, and we were in a town called Tagazout, which is it's a cool surfing town
Okay.
north of Agadir. But it's a small town, maybe like 2,000 people or 5,000 people, something like that, in the single thousands. And it's touristy, so there's restaurants and there's hostels and I stay there in a co-living space for digital nomads, and I had friends that stay there. And I was talking to them from Spain, and they were like, "Hey, so now with the COVID shutdown, like all the restaurants are closed, like everything's closed, right? The only thing that's open is this tiny little convenience store, and that's where we get food, and that's how we're surviving. But the bigger thing, this one friend told me, she's like, the biggest concern though is that there are all these stray dogs, and the stray dogs were being fed by the owners of the restaurants. They would leave scraps out for them and food out for them. And now these
Baby.
dogs don't have any food. And so it's a pack of stray dogs. Like, and so she was telling me, like, so now I'm feeding the dogs. I'm going around like making sure all the dogs have food also for my own safety. Because then if they know that I'm the one giving them food, they're not gonna get
Attack you.
aggressive with me,
Right.
And so anyways, that was lucky. Like, we could have easily been stuck there, but we got stuck in Spain. It was fine. And once I got stuck in Spain, I was like, I wanted residency some other place that isn't the US. And so, that sort of solidified that decision for me. And so I was there for a few months. I went back to the US for a few months to do the visa process properly.
Mm,
And at that time, it was a non-lucrative visa because the digital nomad visa didn't exist.
okay.
All digital nomads were doing the non-lucrative visa, and so I did that, and then I came back to Spain with a proper digital nomad visa before that.
And so when you applied for your non-lucrative visa, was that just a year that you had it and then you had to renew, or what was the process when you did
And
it?
then I renewed, yeah. Then yeah, and then I did the renewals. I did my last renewal. I did also before the digital nomad visa existed, and so once I got the last renewal, like that, now that's run out. I'm getting a permanent residency now because I've completed 5 years.
Completed your
In
5 years?
March last month, I completed 5 years. So now I'm
Oh,
just
wow.
waiting. I'm waiting probably a month or so before I officially get. But I have all my paperwork in and everything, so I'm just waiting.
So because of COVID, you got stuck in Spain and now you can be a resident.
Yeah.
Life
Silver
has a way
lining,
of working out? I don't
silver
know.
lining. Exactly,
I don't
exactly.
know.
But I really wanted to live somewhere else because what I was doing for work before that is that I had my own animated series, and I was
Mhm.
making videos about social and political issues. So I was covering a
Yeah.
lot of American society, a lot of American political things, and I could see how fragile American democracy was. And so this is like 10 years ago. I was making videos about this. And so I was telling friends and family, like, hey, really need to make plans, like have a plan B and a plan C to leave the country because it's not
Mm,
looking good. Like, it's people don't realize like how it's like a democracy held up by duct tape, like this is really quite
it is.
much more fragile than people realize. And, things shake and hit the fan pretty quickly. And when something like that happens, options is gold.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have options. And so
What
having
about
another, yeah.
for you, what about Venezuela? Like, do you have dual citizenship there or no?
So I have dual citizenship with Venezuela, but it's because once you have Venezuelan citizenship, by law, you can't ever renounce it or get rid of it. And
Really?
so, yeah. And
I
so
didn't
I
know that.
have, yeah, yeah. And
Interesting.
so, and so I have a Venezuelan passport, but it's been expired for many years since I was a teenager because I haven't used it. I've used it since I was a teenager. But now, funnily enough, if I had the Venezuelan passport, it would be super useful because I could automatically apply for Spanish citizenship
You
because
could.
I've already been here more than the number of years that they
Yeah.
ask you to be. It's 2 years for Venezuelan or former Spanish colony.
So maybe you should get So
Yeah, no, actually, then that's my next project. Like, as soon as I have the permanent residency, I was already so close to the permanent residency. I was like, let
yeah,
me
it
let
was
me apply that for that and get that, secure that. Once I have permanent residency, my next project is figure out how to renew my Venezuelan passport because I might have to go to Venezuela. I don't have it's not an easy renewal because I haven't lived there for a long time. I don't have a Venezuelan ID. Like, I would have to get a Venezuelan ID for the first time and then use that to renew the passport. And then once I have the passport, then do the process in Spain to say like, hey, I'm a Venezuelan citizen, and I've already been in the country for more than 2 years.
got it.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing, and I don't know
It's
what
all
it
these
entails.
things you
So
d yeah, it's all these things, but you don't know these things until it comes up and you have to investigate it. Like, I was
exactly.
looking into my Italian ancestry because for because of the dates, I have a very young family. There's like 5 generations in like X amount, like 100 years. And because of the timetable, like I could have been eligible for my Italian citizenship. And then like this time last year when I was like, trying to like get all the paperwork together, Italy changed the law.
Yeah.
So it's like that shit happens all the time. Um, or like things get skewed or change or shift slightly and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's a lot to keep up with. So, but we've learned 2 things here. Always travel with your computer and keep your citizenships and residencies up to date.
Yeah.
For anybody listening, like these are good things. So 5 years here. You've already mentioned a couple projects that you've done. Obviously, you have a very entrepreneurial spirit. One of the things and how we connected was one of your initiatives called Amigos Valencia. What prompted you to start this like networking, not really a networking group, but like a community entity?
Event. So Amigos Valencia is a meetup group in Valencia and we organize events, weekly events, and we have WhatsApp groups, and it's just a community resource for people to connect and make friends and stuff. We just crossed 5,000 member. Actually, I think we might hit 6,000 now in a few days. Actually, so it's it's grown quite fast, and it was a hobby. I started organizing the events because I wanted more of a sense of community around me. Was in Valencia for a couple of years. I've been in a couple of years now, but the first year that I was in Valencia, I was with my ex-girlfriend. And after we broke up, I realized like, oh, I would love to have just a much wider network of people around me because I felt kind of isolated. And so I put a lot more, I had already started organizing the events, but I put a lot more effort into doing some fun events and interesting and kind of expanding the community. And then that turned into, having a nice circle of friends and social connections and things like that. But then the events just got really popular. So then last year, when I first started the events, I had 15 people, 20 people show up, like great. And then this slowly, it was like 25 people and like 30 people and then 50 people. And then last summer, it was like 90 people, 100
Too
people,
many people.
120 people, like it's just
Run away.
massive events. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, okay, this is something. Let me just make sure that it can continue to grow organically. And what I like is, I created a companion WhatsApp group that was meant to be an events sharing group because I've had this experience as a digital nomad traveling around the world that you arrive in a place, you don't have a network, you don't know what's going on. You just want to know like, hey, what's happening tonight? Where are people hanging out tonight? And there's no place to like ask that. And so I was like, let me create this group that's just like a place where you can ask that. Like, hey, what are people doing tonight? Who wants to go grab a drink or who wants to go hang out? And so that was the original intention of that group. But then very quickly, it morphed into a community resource where people were asking things like, hey, does anybody know a good cleaning lady? Or does anybody know a good like tax attorney? Because I need to do my taxes and I'm an American and I'm trying to do this thing. Or I'm trying to open up this new business or, and then people are like sharing resources as a true community would. And so I was like, okay, this is very organically growing as a community. I want to support that as much as possible. And so that's kind of the status of it now. Right now we have one big meetup a week. It's a Sunday picnic that we're doing now that the weather's nice in Valencia. And then the rest is people spontaneously get together in the group. So spontaneously people will be like, hey, who wants to go to the beach now? Like, we're here, come meet up, whoever wants to join. And then people have made friends and made connections. And one of the best comments I've gotten is from people who are like, hey, like I only came to your event once. But at that event, I met this person who then introduced me to this person. And then now that's my group of friends in Valencia. Like that's my little crew. And that's so cool. Like that was the purpose, So I love it. Like it's really, really cool.
I guess I got to come to a picnic and meet my friends.
Yeah.
I do have friends
New
that
friends.
go. So yeah,
Sunday afternoon. Yeah, Sunday afternoon. Come on over.
Well, let me ask this because, and I should probably put it in the group, but are these events family friendly? Because there's a lot of families that have and are moving to Valencia. So
Yes, so it depends on the venue. So we used to have an event at a bar every
Yeah.
Sunday, and obviously that's less family friendly. We used to do like a rooftop bar event, but then other things like we'll have like beach days or we'll have, I mean,
Mm,
this picnic obviously it's very family friendly. You can bring your family, you can bring,
your dog.
yeah, dog stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it's super fun. So anyways, that's turned into something really nice. People ask me all the time now, like if I'm monetizing it or how I'm doing it. I don't have any specific business model around it other than to continue to make sure that it serves a practical purpose. Because then if I do want to have some business offshoot off of it, then I'll have that opportunity. I could do like guided tours. I could do, we were throwing around an idea of doing like a co-living project, which is
Mm,
still a possibility, because housing is the number one thing that people are looking for in Valencia, and
yep.
it's very hard to find. Things like that, like, I know there'll be opportunities to take more advantage of that group to monetize it or do whatever, but in the meantime, I don't wanna corrupt the original mission of it.
Yeah, the integrity of it. I understand that. Is it ever get like overwhelming to manage?
So, yes. So last year, I was doing everything myself, and then this year, I very purposely try to bring other people in to help, and so a few people have volunteered, have stepped up to say, "Hey, I'm available to help co-host events. I can fill in, I can help." So, for example, this last Sunday, we had 120 people signed up for the picnic.
Wow.
And I was like, I can't host that many people like I need. So I had help from two volunteers who are part of the Amigos community who have, expressed interest in helping co-host events, and they came and helped me co-host. So then we
Yeah.
had the three of us who were co-hosting the event.
It's hard to be the face of something, like the brand, like the face of a brand or,
Yeah,
like, because 120 people is like you have to talk to that many people like at your wedding with your partner, like that's a
yeah,
lot of
that's a lot.
conversations to have. You have to divide and conquer for
Totally,
sure.
yeah, and I do like it's funny, having such large groups because I do actually enjoy one-on-one and small groups
Mhm.
better, I think. It's fun to
Yeah.
like, when it gets past a certain size, for me, mentally, it feels more like I'm managing a group more than I'm participating in it.
Yeah.
So past a certain point, I'm just like my mind is more like, okay, are people comfortable? Are having a good time? Like what's the dynamic of the group? Do I see people who are maybe isolated and then I can go and help integrate them
Yeah.
or talk to them? So then my brain is just sort of, and I don't know, I think it's just my own instinctual, I don't know, feeling of like, maybe it's part of the people pleasing part of me that it's like I just want people to have a good time. And so I'm like, hey, making sure that everybody's good and everybody's okay. But that obviously takes me out of the experience.
I'm gonna go back because growing up, again, multicultural, different countries. Did you
Mm.
ever feel left out? Is that why maybe or,
Hmm.
like why this you're the one who went down said something about people pleasing
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So, I'm just
Yeah.
curious as
No, that's a good, I think, yeah, no, that's a really good probability actually, because it may be that my experience jumping so much from different places,
yeah.
I can be very extroverted. I
Mhm.
can also be pretty introverted. I think I'm like at 60/40. I think most people that know me through these events would think I'm like 80/20, 80%
Yeah.
extroverted, or maybe a little introverted sometimes, but mostly extroverted is how they see me because
Right.
that's how
It's a
I am
perception for
in that
sure.
moment. But knowing that I have that range, I've had the experience of arriving in a place and maybe I'm not feeling so extroverted that day. So then it's just much harder to feel like I
Yeah.
can go meet people and connect. And so in that
Mhm.
moment, I would appreciate an extroverted person to come in and be like, "Hey, what's up? Like, where are you from? And like, let's come meet this person," and kind of connect me. And so maybe that's part of the motivation for me wanting to do that for other people is my own experience of feeling insecurity or feeling,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah.
I don't wanna say like present or available, but it's like, when you've been there, you can have a certain perception or like awareness or energetic read of somebody else, right? Like when they're in that. And also, if you are more split in neutrality of like introverted versus extroverted, mentally preparing yourself for like you have to save your energy for this is also helpful. So you can kind of compartmentalize. Like I get to be extroverted here, so I'm going to be introverted there as well. It's just interesting because I went to like 3 different high schools when I was younger. My first 2 high schools, I had all, like you were saying, I had all the friends, super popular, blah, 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 blah. I moved to like my 3rd high school and I struggled to make friends. Yeah, like it was weird. Like it was just so, and I wasn't, again, like you, I was myself in all these situations. And like 17-year-old girl in a new school
So
was really
hard.
difficult, super
Yeah.
hard. And later and at college, I had somebody say to me, "I was like, well, you were just a snob." And I was like, you, and I was like, I was the new girl. I was quiet. I was like, I didn't want to come in like a wrecking ball, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
and be off putting to people. Like I was like very measured in my, I don't know. And so it,
Mm,
those things like stay with you, I think too. And I didn't have this, I wish I had the same reaction that you did when you're like, well, I'm the same, so it must be them. Like, I wish it was a them. Like, I wish I thought that because it was them. They weren't being welcoming to me as the new
right.
girl in school. And so just
Yeah.
like thinking about how those experiences shape us, throughout our life, I was just curious that if having a certain specific background, if, there was a time where you felt left out, moving, being in Venezuela and then going to the US or vice versa or not. So I think a lot of it
Yeah.
is also unconscious or subconscious and all these things inform us, sometimes more prolifically and sometimes more under the radar.
Totally. And I do think it was for me just luck that it landed that way because it easily could have landed a different way.
Yeah.
And it just perfect storm of alignment. It just landed us like, "Oh, I'm the same,
Yeah.
I'm the same. So I know I'm not the problem. I
You're
know
saying
that
a lot.
I told this joke before and it killed. I know this is good material. So
I am the next Adam Sandler or whoever. Can't think of any Venezuelan like comedians or
yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Exactly, yeah. And also, like, in terms of teenagehood, like, the fact that how they see you, they're also dealing people are also dealing with their own insecurities
Yeah.
and their own things, like and so they're also like everybody has their own internal world that they're dealing with. And so a couple years ago I talked to an old high school friend, this girl that I used to play tennis with, and she was like, "By the way, did you know that I had a huge crush on you?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like
Now you
no
tell me.
idea. Yeah, exactly. It's like no idea because it's like, I'm in my own thing and I would have
Yeah.
never, I'm projecting my own stuff onto everybody, you know? And so,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think that's such a good point. Even now, it's like we're all projecting onto other people. Like even having this conversation, like me thinking, like going back and analyzing my own situations and hearing your story is like I'm still projecting like, "Oh, I felt this way. Did you feel that way too?" And it's almost like you don't it's not like you're seeking validation, but just like camaraderie. Like, "Oh, you felt that too." And so I guess that's another layer of having this Amigos Valencia group is that like there is a sense of camaraderie and shared, I don't want to say struggle because we're all choosing to be here and we are choosing to be immigrants and expats. I think that's such a privilege regardless of how you slice it, but there is a shared understanding and a common thread that does unite us regardless of where we're from in the world. We can share something. And we're not all going to get along, of course, like that's just how it goes, but I just think it's interesting to kind of observe and analyze and see how like the past informs the present in like a more productive, you know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
totally.
got a little bit of the like into psychology in that one, but
Love it. I love it.
why not? Well, please.
Yeah. So I have this new project called escapeamerica.org, and it's basically a platform helping Americans move out of the US and move out to anywhere.
Okay.
Canada or Mexico or Thailand or Europe. And what I'm leaning on are the things that I know how to do best, which is community, like hold a space for a community and
Mhm.
content creation. And so the Escape America has two parts. It has the online community and an interview series where I interview Americans who are living around the world. That's the content creation part. And I really wanted to lean into the hub aspect of moving abroad, because in my experience, so there's several aspects of this. We talked about earlier about over 50% of Americans don't have a passport.
Yeah, crazy to me.
And
Absolutely absurd.
the percentage of Americans who are interested in leaving the United States right now is at an all-time high in the history of the United States.
How
And
about that?
so the desire is running up against the lack of experience and ignorance around what it takes to move and to go around the world. And at that moment, you don't need so much like practical resources. Like, yes, those help, but my experience is that I've found a lot of people use the question of uh, practical resources to
Mm-hmm.
mask the insecurity and the fear that they have around the big transition. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll ask about like visa process and pathways and all that stuff, but what they're really asking is like, am I going to be okay if I move to France? Like, is that going to be okay for me and my family? Like, are we going to be okay? Like, is that
Jonah,
yeah. And obviously
gotta do it.
yeah, the easiest way to channel that is through all these sort of very logistical questions, right? It's like, what about the language, and where do we live, and how will we do that, and how do we do this, and obviously all of that creates more safety in terms of psychological awareness, of
Mm-hmm.
the transition. But that's where I think that a community space is most valuable, because then you can share that journey with other people who are having the same struggles and the same questions. And so even maybe this family is not moving to the same country you're moving to, or they're thinking of moving to a different country, they're still going through a similar process where they
Yeah.
have to figure out all the same similar things. And the business model of the project is very simple. The community hub is the main thing. Once people start needing resources, like they'll need like law firms for immigration processes, they'll need tax attorney help, they'll need real
Mm-hmm.
estate help, all these different things. Once they need those things, then I can point them to resources. And then if they
Mm-hmm.
end up hiring those resources, then the company gets a cut or a percentage. So that's the simplest model of the business right now. It may end up becoming like a paid community at some point. If it grows past a certain size. It's still very early. I have 100 members in that community now, so it's still very small. Yeah, exactly.
I joined.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still very small. But the interview series is about to kick up, and that's gonna be I'm gonna be publishing 2 to 3 interviews a week, for different Americans around the world. So like, we'll see. As with any things in business, you kind of have to be ready to pivot and see what people
Yeah.
are responding to. It may be that people respond to the interview series the most, over the community, for example. And if that's the case, then you
Mm.
just kind of pivot a bit and say, okay, let's put more emphasis on the interview series, or maybe they like the community more, then you put more emphasis on that. So,
But I do think the
yeah.
community is the good place. They don't ever go away. I personally have never. I like to read them. I never participate in them.
Okay.
Um,
You're a lurker,
I'm a
actually a
lurker.
lurker.
Yeah. I like to observe, but because a lot of times, if you just pay attention, the question you asked has already been answered. Ooh, that's a metaphor for life. But it is. It is. The question has already been answered, and a lot of times too, it's like, it's just thinking about like, yeah, so, someone's moving to France or someone's moving to Vietnam, whatever. It's just also thinking, did I ask that question? Or I didn't think to ask that question, or I didn't know that was a possibility. So sometimes the things just going through the community or having that community just gives you ideas about what you could think. Which is kind of like how my podcast got started, was like, these are just all the things you could do as a parent. It's all the things you could experience as an immigrant, like when you're choosing to leave a country. And I think that is invaluable, because even though like your situation and my situation are not the same, you can say, well, I did this, but I did it 5 years ago. So you can start there and then branch off. And I think that's really important. The other thing I was going to ask is, how did like Amigos Valencia help to inspire Escape America? Or where'd the idea come from, and how long have you been putting all of this together?
Okay, so Fun fact about Escape America. I registered the domain and created a prototype website on the lead up to the 2024
Oh,
presidential election.
action.
And I did it just in case, because I thought, there's
Same.
this thing that happens with every election in the US, which is that no matter who wins, there's always a spike for Google searches that say how to move out of the country, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of general trends, more left-leaning people tend to travel a lot more than right-leaning people, right? And so I was like, if Trump wins, it's going to be this massive spike of people being like, how do I move out of the country? If I have a service called Escape America that can kind of capture some of that interest, then that's an easy launch. But I did it kind of as an afterthought. I have so many projects that I'm like, oh, let me try this and let me try that. And so I put it together, I had it ready, and then I didn't think he was going to win, but then he won. And I was like, oh my God, I need to launch this thing now. I have like 24 hours to launch this thing. And so I wrote up a press release. I wrote up a press release and I sent it out and I started getting like media hits. But then I went to bed that night and I woke up the next morning and I just had like a sinking feeling that was like, I really don't know what this means. And I also don't know what it means for me to be the face of this thing called Escape America. Like, how are people going to receive it? Like, I don't know, you
Interesting.
know, Trump very vocally was talking about retribution and going after the enemies and all that stuff. And I'm like, am I going to end up on a bunch of lists? And is this safe for myself and my family and stuff? So I was like, okay, I'm not ready to do this. And so I pulled the plug. I took the site down. I took everything down. And then I just like sat on it. Like, okay, this didn't exist. And it was funny because I was still getting calls from media outlets being like, hey, we saw your thing. Like, we'd love to interview you. I'm like, listen, like, there was one outlet where I told them the whole story over the phone. I was like, look, I took it down because I was doing social political videos before, and those got very, very popular. So I know what it's like when you get a lot of attention. Like, you should see the emails that I would get, like
I
when a
can't
video got very
imagine.
popular. Yeah. When a video got very popular, it got 10 million views, 20 million views. I had one video that got 75 million views across all platforms. And emails and messages I would get, it's like, when you reach a large number of people, you're also going to reach the crazies. And so, like, inevitably. And so, I
Some
I
of us
was
are good
like,
crazy, okay?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, myself included, of course.
Anyway,
But
back to the topic.
the harmful crazies,
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was like, if I've done that and now I'm doing this, like, are people gonna connect it as like, oh, this guy like hates America and he's like trying to do this thing? It's like the type of segment that you would see on Fox News, right? It's like,
No,
oh,
for
here
sure.
we have the founder of Escape America. So why do you hate America so much? And why are you trying to
Yeah,
get people to leave?
exactly.
So I was like, I'm not ready psychologically to be the face of that. And so I'm gonna pull the plug and kind of chill. And so I did. I took a step back. I was doing some marketing consulting stuff. I was working on other things. I end up starting to do this Amigos Valencia community, and that starts growing. And then the spark kind of starts coming up. And also time passes and you can kind of
Yeah.
get the lay of the land and be like, okay, well, maybe it's not so unsafe. Maybe it's okay for me to be a little more vocal about this. Also, like, it's inherently the Escape America platform is not there's no political ideology behind it. But obviously, naturally what's going to
It's
happen
gonna
is
be
that
assumed.
a lot of people that are interested in it are going to be left leaning to begin with, because that's the where they're coming from in terms of the motivation. But it's not in the brand or nothing in the thing is very like heavily political. Actually, I should rephrase that because I just launched a comic strip series for the Escape America brand, and that one is very political. So that's a whole other thing. We can talk about that too,
You
because I
renege.
like
You renege.
what?
It's political. You renege that statement. It's
Yeah, I know. I'm
political.
reneged. Yes, I don't recall. Okay, so
Recount.
anyways, once I started the community aspect, I realized like, oh, maybe that's the best framing for this project. And so I
Mm.
retook it again. I reactivated the website. And then I started slowly putting it out there again. And so right now I'm still creating content. I'm still very much on ramp up mode. I know that by the time the midterms come, they're very politically charged time and a lot of attention's in it. I know I'm going to get more traffic and it's going to be a good time to kind of continue to build. But by then I'm going to have a lot more content. I just wanted, same with the community, the Valencias, the Amigos Valencia. I just want it to be a resource, a good resource for people in the community.
Yeah. I want to touch on this because I think it's really important that you even had to consider your safety when launching a website.
Yeah.
And for people,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who, because I have this good discussion with like friends and family all the time about like privilege, white privilege, what that means. Like,
But yeah.
male privilege versus female privilege, and where there's just misogyny versus there's like all different kinds of privilege no matter how you cut it. Like I always talk to my dad, like you never had to walk home with your keys in between your fingers, the first floor of apartments, because that's not safe for one. Okay, so we all have our things, right? I think it's really important and very poignant to point out that you had to consider the safety of not only yourself but your family just by launching a fucking website. And if anybody wants to understand what it means to have white privilege, I would not have had to do that. So that is the point that we try to make, or when people try to say, oh, you had this. No. Privilege is being able to move about the world in a very specific way. And even like moving abroad, we both have had that privilege. My privilege is different than your privilege to do that. And I'm putting this in air quotes. So I just want to highlight that for anybody who thinks that like, privilege is, getting into Harvard or something like that. No, it's being able to move about the world in a specific way. And if we don't appreciate the advantages that we have and we don't support people and having those same advantages, then it's like you are part of the problem. So that's another reason I like to share different perspectives, is because we have to understand that our experiences are not equal and we need to understand where someone's coming from so we can make the world a better place. So
Totally.
I just wanted to call that out because I think, again,
exactly.
very important. So now you've built this Escape America. You feel comfortable to put it out there and to share it, like no one's going to come after you. So I guess it's good. I'm like calling myself out here nervous laughter. Like you feel safe enough, right? Like, because that's kind of
I
scary.
think so.
You think so? Well, we're going to find out. You're going to learn, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Well, let me tell you a little bit of talking about privilege. Last year when they started arresting people, ICE, and then deported them. I mean, they're still doing it, but deporting them to, torture prisons in Central America with no due process. And a lot of these people, sometimes they were permanent residents, sometimes they were legally in the country, and it just didn't matter. They just got lost in the limbo of that. I was talking to an old friend who, he's a white man from California. Like he just, and so we're talking about all these different things, and I'm voicing the trouble that this represents, and he's like, oh, like this is great, like I love how passionate you are about these issues and stuff. And I'm like, and I was just like, this isn't a hobby, you know what I mean? Like I'm not passionate about this. Like it's not a choice that I'm making to be like, oh, let me get interested in these things. It's like the reason I'm talking about this is because they're affecting me personally. My mom is now afraid to go to the supermarket because she's hearing about raids happening in Houston. And even though she's an American citizen, her passport just happens to be at the Spanish consulate. So she can't readily prove that she's a U.S. citizen. So then it's an additional thing that she has to think about that she didn't have to think about before. So I'm not passionate about these issues. It's not it's not a choice that I made. And so that's sort of the attitude that I'm like, oh my God, like it's hard to, and I've wrestled with this a lot when I was making the animated videos too. How do you make people care when they're not affected directly, or they don't think they're affected directly?
You don't. That's the problem. I was talking like school shootings. I'm going to go back to this. It's a terrible topic to talk about, but I was chatting about this earlier. And there's a school shooting in my middle school in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. I wasn't there at the time. My stepsister and my cousin were. And those school shootings have been a huge part of my life for the last 23 years. Now, they don't impact other people until they happen in their backyard. And I'm not a naysayer on guns per se, but I am a naysayer on the way that we approach our mental health and our gun laws in the United States. Absolutely, I am, and I would say that to the president. I would say that to NRA. I would say to, like, no, we're not taking care of our people at all whatsoever. And if we were, we would have better measures in place. Period. End of story. You don't care about my fucking child. I don't care about your goddamn gun law. Period. My child deserves to go to school safely. So that's the problem that we have, is that until we are directly impacted or we care about somebody who's directly impacted, we don't care about the people who are being deported. And we don't care about the kids that are dying in schools because, and you guys, you might think that listening to this, that those are two unalike things. No, but it's like we literally have people losing their lives, whether it's being deported to places that they are not from, that they do not know, that they've never ventured for, even like mentioning like the DACA earlier, like those poor kids like who have lived their whole life in a country and we're just going to send them away. Like what the, I just think about if someone did that to my child. What the heck, man? These are not unrelated things. It's about our humanity, and I think we've lost it. I digress because I
Yeah.
will keep on going. So to answer your question, that it is impossible to make somebody care about something that doesn't impact them or that they can't see. You know, it's like somebody who's in, you know, you can't save someone from themselves. So someone who's an addict of any kind, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, doesn't matter. People don't
Mm,
want help or to be saved, and they don't want to participate until it influences them. And the natural, in my experience and observation of life, is that we get stuck in our bubbles and we're just trucking along. And until something comes in and explodes our world, we don't think about it.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so we're just talking about privilege
Yeah.
and getting people to care.
Yes.
And so you create
Really.
Escape America. Now you feel that you're in a better place that you can move forward with it. And so these political comics, let's go back to political comics
Oh,
and
yeah.
discuss those a little bit.
Yeah, let me give you more context. So so my background is in marketing and strategy, and I like doing unconventional sort of PR and marketing campaigns, things that are sort of are out of the ordinary. So for example, over 10 years ago or so, I had a public speaking website that I wanted to promote. And I thought, what would be a unique way to promote this website? Well, I'm going to try to break the Guinness World Record for longest speech marathon. At that time, the record was
Crazy.
34 hours something. And so I turned it into a live stream thing. I had media come down. It was in this like auditorium place. I had all these people. And I spoke for 36 hours and 46 minutes. Did a whole, you know, um, did a whole turn it into a whole event.
Any seconds?
Yeah, I don't remember. But the purpose of that, if we want to get a little nerdy on the marketing side, is that I knew that because it's a blog and a website, how people were growing their blogs and their websites then was through very traditional SEO
Mm-hmm.
efforts. And what that looked like is that you would say, hey, let me do a guest blog on your site, and you can write on my site, and then we share links, and then Google sees that your site is linked to mine, and then that increases the visibility a little bit, right? But the way that Google works is that if you have really high authority websites that are more important, that are linking to your site, then Google says, hey, this website must be really important. Let me put it up higher on the search results. And one way to hack that is to get media attention, because then the links
Mm-hmm.
that you get to your website are not from your peers, your blogs that are sort of at the same level as you, but they're instead from CNN and from ABC News and from, whatever. And so I was like, okay, let me try to do something that attracts media attention and publicize it and do the whole, event. The essentially the work was right before the event started. As soon as I stepped up on stage and started speaking, I had already succeeded because I
Mm.
had media coming. I had links from like Houston Chronicle and San Francisco Chronicle, and like all these different like media links were coming back to my tiny little website that nobody knew about. Right? I went from zero, completely unknown, to Google being like, who the fuck is this? Like, we should, we should
Who's this guy?
push these results higher up, you know? And so then I do the event, and of course the event is interesting, and it's you
Yeah.
know, at least something that people are going to tune into, be like, what is this crazy guy doing? You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
like why? You know? But then at the end, I slept for like 2 days straight afterwards.
I can
So worn out.
imagine.
I was sipping a herbal tea the whole time because I didn't want to lose my voice. And the event ends, and then, you know, 2-3 months later, I start seeing my website traffic like very organically, just like choop, 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 like go all the way up. Because now Google is giving preference to a lot of my articles that are coming in. So it served the purpose. Anyways, all that is to say, like, that's kind of how I like to think about things, is what can I do that is a little bit different or unconventional from what everybody else is doing? And so for the Escape America project, I thought, well, you know, there are two things. There are two things. One, I don't know how much into the weeds you want me to get in this, but I can nerd out on this for quite a bit. So,
It's your podcast. I'm just here listening for it.
okay. So one thing I noticed is that, you know, the relocation services market, you know, people that offer relocation services. So like help with paperwork, help with finding real estate and apartments and that whole process, right? That market, there's the chunk of people that are interested in leaving the US, right? Out of those people, the percentage of people that will actually act and leave the US is smaller, right? And the percentage of people that act and leave the US and realize, hey, we need help with some of this paperwork, we're not going to do it ourselves, it's smaller than that. So now you have this portion, that's the entire relocation services, right? That's who all of those companies are competing for. They're competing for these people who are like, hey, we need help. And we just Googled how, you know, visa help for, you know, non-lucrative visa for Spain or whatever, or the D7 visa for Portugal or whatever, right? It's that tiny market. They're ready to take action and they're looking for help, right? I thought, well, what would happen if you target people not here, but way up here at the curiosity stage? Because not a lot of people are doing that. And so this is the purpose of the community, because the community is a much broader group. It's like, hey, if you're just thinking about moving, wondering what that's like, come join and you're going to meet other people that are in the same boat. But then it's going to give you ideas, what we were talking about earlier. You start seeing what other people are doing and you say, and you know, maybe that's something I could do, or I hadn't thought about that, or I didn't know that this resource was available. It just sparks new ideas. Maybe they take action, maybe not, but they're at this stage. They're at a stage that they're like, I'm curious, I'm open, I want to know more. Okay. And so the idea is that from that place, you know, there's going to be a percentage that decides, a percentage that actually takes action, and that can kind of ride the whole funnel. Okay. If people are at this curiosity stage, what are some interesting, unconventional things that you can do to bring more people at that stage to come in? And so this one I started thinking. Now, I like cartoons, I like comics, I like this thing. I especially like cartoons that have like a social political bent, because I've always been fascinated by the ability to talk about serious things in a playful context through playful tools.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, like, I wonder what it would look like if Escape America had its own comic strip. And so, like, a social political comic strip. And so I started doing it. Very crude, like stick figure drawings that I put together in Illustrator and stuff. Very simple, but it's the topics, you know, and the purpose and the themes of the cartoons that are the important thing. So I posted the first couple on Reddit. They both got thousands of upvotes and 200 and 300,000 views within 24 hours of me posting them. And so then I could see my own website traffic like whoop spike up, because all the cartoons have my URL. They're not linked. People still have to type them in, but it doesn't matter. It's visibility to a brand from zero that nobody knows, you know, and I know for a fact there's not a single relocation service company in the world that is going to think about doing cartoons to promote their company.
Now they
They'll
will.
have yeah, now they know. Exactly.
And your idea is now stolen. So
I know exactly.
good for
Now
you.
everyone is a cartoon
Well
series.
done.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing. So I'm doing these fun cartoons about what life is like in the US and the cost of living things and wealth inequality and political, all this ICE, all these different things. Like, and it's obviously it's much more social politically charged, right? But it's just an interesting way to also get attention for the brand, So an additional side campaign that is part of the
And
brand.
I
And
think it's also
I have so much fun doing it. I've always wanted
well,
to have
that's the
my
other
own
point.
comic strip. So,
First of all, the comics in a Sunday paper are a lost art form, I have to
yep,
say. Like, that was
yep,
the only reason to read the Sunday newspaper was for the comics,
yeah,
from the opinion of a 7-year-old anyway.
yes.
But, like, we started off discussing this a bit, how temperamental the US is. I'm of a mindset that I don't think it matters what side of the coin you're on anymore. I think that like you said, it's been duct taped together. Technically, our republic has been duct taped together, and our democratic process has been destroyed. And that is because we're not by the people for the people anymore. We are by the corporate for the corporate. As the people, we have allowed that to happen, if we're going to go down a political rabbit hole for a minute. And so I think that something like this is really essential, because even if you're right leaning, or even if you're left leaning, or even if you're neutral, I think you can feel a shift in the American paradigm. I have personally for a number of years, and I think it's really important to give people resources to get out if that's what they so choose. What resources are you hoping to connect people to for this mission?
The primary thing, yeah, this is really good. The primary thing with the interview series is that I want to cover different Americans living in different parts of the world
Mhm.
who come from completely different backgrounds, from as
Mhm.
many backgrounds as possible. So, for example, like here's a couple with a family that moved to Thailand and they've been living there for X number of years. She's a young professional woman, and she's talking about what it's like to live in, Vietnam or in Australia or Bali or whatever. Just cover like every single potential demographic, because when
Mhm.
you see yourself reflected, I think
Yes.
that's the biggest help and resource that you can have, because you can say like, oh, this person's in the exact same boat as me, and these are the
Yes.
decisions and the tools that they used, and this is the path that they took. Maybe I can do that too, or maybe that works for me. Maybe part of that works for me, but some of it I can modify. I think that's the most valuable thing, is having other people who have cleared the path for you, that you can say, oh, okay, this is not so scary. I can just follow this proven path. And so that's primarily the main thing, because actual tools and resources, they're going to continue to change over time. And
Mhm.
so the valuable thing is knowing people that have just done the process or have done the process
Mhm.
recently, that they can tell you like, hey, no, actually that law in Italy just changed and you can get,
Mhm.
birthright citizenship through, your great grandparents or whatever,
So
like,
sad.
I know. Yeah. And so, because these things are going to continue to happen, it's migration of people. Migration of people means that people adapt naturally. And I'll give you an example: the Spanish consulate. When I was doing a non-lucrative visa, and even last summer, the process was taking 3 to 4 weeks to get a decision
Mm.
on the visa. Right now, it's taking 4 to 6 months, because it's so hard to even get an appointment. And that's just
Yeah.
that's not because of anything the Spanish consulate did. It's just a natural limitation from a lot more people applying, right? Like if
Mhm.
they have a staff of X and they're used to handling whatever, 100 applications or whatever, and now they're getting 200, like naturally that's going to slow things down. So what I tell people is, um, you know, if you're ready to take a step, like start making inroads towards that step, because the paths and the doors that are available today might not be the doors that are still open in 6 months or a year. All of these things are in constant fluctuation, and you have to be aware of that. So it's not, a lot of people, I can't imagine how many people thought like, oh, I can just get Italian citizenship if I need to at some point, because that's an option. And now it's no longer an option. Like that type of stuff is going to continue to happen,
Yeah.
where doors are going to close just naturally because of how things
Well,
fluctuate.
for the Italian thing, people were taking advantage of it. So certain things will, and the country wasn't seeing the benefits. So you have all these people with
Makes
dual
sense. Yeah.
passports, but like they're not living in Italy. They're living in Spain. They're living in, wherever they're living, but they're not in Italy, and Italy's not seeing the benefits. So that's one thing that I think when you're talking about like just escape America and these doors opening and closing, that's something to consider is that things are in flux because governments are businesses, whether we want to admit that or not, and they need to see a benefit as well. The other interesting thing too, when we're talking about like immigration in general or the migration of people, first, that's happened since people were people. Actually, we are more nomadic than anything, and our what agricultural agrarian lifestyle is only about 700 years old. Okay, so there's that. We are used to moving about the world. As that happens, oh my gosh, I just lost my point. Dang it, because it was a good one too. It was a good one
No.
too about like how we've been doing it forever, but that wasn't the point. That's so disappointing. It'll come back
Have
to
you
me.
have you read *Sapiens*? By any chance?
No,
No? So
no.
that was one book where it painted the whole nomadic shift to this sort of non-nomadic, I don't know what to call it, stable, I don't know, hermit, I don't know, non-movable society thing, that it painted it very clearly for me. And it was obviously the
Yeah.
agriculture is what cemented people into being like, oh, we gotta wait for the harvest, we gotta wait for this thing to like bloom because we just planted these things.
Mhm.
But then that created this thing where like, well, we're planting these things and we're waiting for them. We don't want the animals to eat it or like another tribe to come and take our harvest. So now we got to build a fence. We got to build some sort of protection around it. And then that turns into a city, because now we need like a thing to protect the harvest
Yeah.
so that we can feed our people. And like, it's so fascinating how our
I
history.
I did
Yeah.
a half marathon in Elche, and I took a day to go to like and you could see like how the city was built and like all the walls and stuff. And part of that was exactly what you're saying. As the city grew, they had to build the bigger wall. I got my point about immigration now. So immigration, which we've been doing since people have moved about the world, migrating throughout all the things. What we don't realize as citizens of wherever we are citizens of, first of all the lines are made up. Everything we just decided. People got into a room and decided these boundaries. So that's one. It's
Hmm.
all fucking made up. Two, we need immigration. Right now in the US, the birth rate is 1.6. On average, we need to have a birth rate of 2.2 to maintain the status quo and maintain our operational integrity as the United States of America. Spain has the same problem, which is why they just let 500,000 immigrants into the country. So once we understand that we, the people, are a business for the government, like it's a lot easier to see that like when it comes to people, the US is going bankrupt. We don't have the birth rate to sustain, and we're not allowing immigration to happen. Immigration is essential for every country right now, especially because the birth rate is declining for many, many, many things. So we would be idiots. Any country would be idiotic not to welcome and embrace immigration and make it achievable, because at the end of the day, right now, they need it. China, the same. Russia, the same. Like, we're all in the same boat, like, essentially. So I think, just taking it back to Escape America, I think it's a brilliant thing. It's kind of in our nature, just hardwired as, you know, Homo sapiens to move, even though we think that we are supposed to be stationary. That's still a newer itinerary for us. And I think what you're offering people is really exceptional and hopefully beneficial for all parties involved. But I do have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
First of all, how often do you update the information? And also, like, because right now you have it listed as like Portugal's like number one and Spain is number two. Do you follow certain things to keep that information current, or what's the process there?
I have to look at specifically where I got those, but those were some expat surveys from last year. So, I would probably update them once a year or so, like just kind of have the whatever the most current is. of those same kind of surveys. In terms of resources, like I said, since I know those fluctuate quite a bit, I have a part in the community that is just a it's just a collection of resources for different countries and for different things. But a lot of those resources are also like tax attorneys and law firms and like places like that where there are intermediaries, and then they're gonna have the most up-to-date information
Gotcha.
most of the
So,
time.
and then for the resources, how often are those updated or added to
The
at this point? So, like lawyers, like tax advisors,
they're
etc.
continuously updated. Like they
Okay.
literally are just updated as I get them in, because I'm constantly meeting people that are like, especially when I interview people, they'll say like, "Oh, I use this law firm or
I
I use
see.
this
Gotcha.
resource." And so anytime I interview somebody, I'm like, "Hey, give me your stuff," and then I can add those as a resource, you know. And I'm still debating exactly how to frame that better, because I think what I'm gonna do is when I publish each interview, it's also gonna have its own like list of resources that
Oh, that's
are
probably good.
that they've mentioned, you know, it's like this lawyer and this attorney and this, you know, these things. That way people can kind of connect it directly, but then also put it in the big section that I have on the school and the community for all the like the master resources list. But yeah, no, it just depends. It's a continuous thing because I'm constantly coming across new
Information.
things that people are using, yeah. And then it's fun to also see the patterns, right? Like people are like, "Oh, no, I use that one. Oh, I also use that one." You know, like then you kind of see the cream of the crop rise up.
Oh, okay, that's actually really good because then you know if there's like 100 people using it versus 10, maybe
Yeah,
that you should go with that
exactly. Yeah,
business or
exactly.
lawyer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then, like you said before, I just want to confirm joining like your school community or having access to Escape America is free
Yes,
at
right
this
now
point.
it's free. Yes. There's only about 100 members or so. What I thought is when I get to 1,000 members, I will rethink whether I want to keep it a free community or do I want to make it a paid community. Because something happens after a certain number of people that the quality control, um, you kind of need some sort of wall, because otherwise you start attracting people that just say, "Hey, you have a big community. I want to get in there so that I can post my spam about crypto or my, or maybe even maybe it's not so much so direct spam like that, but it's like, oh, I want to promote my business that relates to
Gotcha.
this, and that's the primary reason why I'm joining." And so that dilutes the purpose of the community, because then you have community
Gotcha.
members that are not really there to move. They're just there to like try to sell you the thing. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
The other thing too, by targeting, just going back a bit to target different interest levels on the moving spectrum, if you will, is like some people aren't ready to move now. Like sometimes some people need more time. And they might not seem interested in this moment, but in 2 or 3 years, they might be at a better place. And so just knowing that they found quality information 3 years ago here is also really good, like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it
ROI in the
is.
future. So,
It's a long sell cycle with a lot of these people, you
yes,
know?
it's long
Yeah.
sales cycle.
Cause it's exactly that. It's exactly that. Like I'm curious today and maybe I'll make the move in like 3 years, 2, 3 years.
The
Yeah.
difference of topics and conversation and, like, emotional intensity of this podcast is all over the place. It's great. It's like me during the day. I'm up, I'm down, I'm sideways, I'm, like, energetic, I'm asleep. It's just like, wow. Like, whoa, all the things. What makes Escape America different than other platforms? I think you touched on this a bit earlier, but just to kinda, like, drive the point home.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I wanted to do and that I like doing is I try to not compete if I can avoid it.
Mm.
So a general thing I learned, I don't remember if I learned this in business school or through a friend or what, but the idea is you want to lower your competition as much as possible. You want to put
Hmm.
yourself in a position where you have very little competition and you're very unique in what you're doing. And in this case, any relocation service company is not my competition. They're my potential partners. And so
Mm.
in that way, then it's much easier to approach, to connect, to be able to interact and to collaborate, because I can say like, "Hey, I can make you a part of our resources. I can send people to you because I'm not doing the paperwork stuff. I'm not helping people with taxes.
Right.
I'm not helping people with the visa forms I need partners to do that for different countries around the world. And
Yeah.
so all of these other services that do have people that are doing that specific work, I can just send them to you, and then I'll take a referral fee or whatever, however you want to do it. But it's a much easier setup so what makes it different is that if you go to any other relocation services thing, they have their service packages, they have their, their offerings. And my biggest offering is the community that is then going to curate different services that they've used. For example, I could say hey, if you're doing the non-lucrative visa, check out this specific Facebook group that is going to help you with that specific thing,
So you're basically operating as a database of resources,
Yeah.
essentially connecting.
Yeah, I'm a
For
bit of
all intents and purposes.
I'm a bit of an intermediary of a hub, like a community hub. Yeah, exactly. That's with lots of spokes.
Like a beehive, and everybody's flying around.
Let's come here first, and then we can recommend this or recommend that, or from there, spike out. That's the general idea. And like I said, in my experience with business, you always have to pivot. You always see what people are responding to. And so I still have to test a lot of these things, be fun.
Yeah.
Be fun to see in a year from now, kind of where things have
What's
moved.
happened?
Yeah, if I've had to make a harder pivot, or maybe exactly how I was thinking of it is how it panned out. I have no idea. In the end, the people are the ones that decide.
Yeah.
And so I just
That's
kind
a
of
good point.
I do the thing and tell me what's most valuable and useful and practical, and then follow that and just continue to be as useful as possible, because that's how you build something valuable.
Right. Amazing. Oof. Is there anything else we didn't know we needed to know about immigration, community
About all
building,
these things, yeah.
or escaping America?
Uh, I mean, I'll tell your viewers the advice that I'm telling all of my friends and family in the U.S., which is have a plan B, have a plan C, if you have the potential for another nationality that is not the U.S., through maybe your own family or through your partner's family.
Yeah.
People don't realize that they have those opportunities. Explore those first, because those are the easiest transitions. The hardest thing when you're moving to another country is being able to work there legally. What are you going to do? Being able to have a residency in that place. Sometimes people start brainstorming countries that they would like to, but they're aspirational places where they have no connection to that place. And that's a much harder place to move to than, say, you have an aunt who's from Mexico, and maybe you hadn't thought of Mexico that seriously, but that's a much easier move if you already have family and connections and people that can help you with that transition. Yeah.
And then your website is escapeamerica.com, correct?
.org.
Org. See, I had to double check that.
Escapeamerica.org. Yep.
Man.
Maybe I'll get the .com at some point. I don't remember if somebody owns it but it's definitely not active. So
that's annoying. I hate when people steal my shit.
Yeah, it's annoying. Yeah, I know. But it's all good.
Well,
I like the .org.
I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna. This is Alex with Escape America. We will link all of the things. Oh, is there a Facebook or is it going to just be on YouTube, the videos and stuff?
Only YouTube.
Okay.
Only YouTube.
All right. Well, until next time, I hope you all are learning things you didn't know you needed to know, because I sure as fuck am.